I just brought the new Japanese game, The Last Guardian. I only saw the gameplay with Jack Specify, and it just happened to look so much fun. So I decided to buy it from GameStop. Since the story in the game was only for the PS4, which I have, I plopped it into my PS4 and played it. As I played, I felt like I was having a Trico on my side. It really made me feel like I was having a mythical creature as a pet. But as we got to the Trico fighting each other creature was similar. Things got a little strange. As the armed up Trico snarled at the boy I'm playing as, I noticed its mouth was moving up and down as if it was talking. But I didn't notice until I realized it was actually talking. But it wasn't talking like a normal person. It was just lip-syncing while it growled at the player. Me. I defeated the boss and just went on to beat the game. After a while, I turned off the game and realized that I was only beating the evil Trico boss. I got a text from my phone that it was just a wall of random numbers similar to the binary code, and it was all in those texts. Then there was a hidden message that once said a simple phrase, run. I was weirded out by this. Who would even want to give me a binary code with the word run? Better yet, who gave me the code? I asked my friends on who the fans were of The Last Guardian, and they told me about the code. But they said they'd have never seen the code before, but it might be something that I could give at least some sort of clue. I typed in the code on my laptop, and what came up was a Japanese article about famous Japanese game developer that died in 2015 from a tumor which abiled the duck. His name was Satoru Utawa. Now, he worked on Nintendo for years before he died. I already know that Satoru Utawa died of a tumor, but why did someone show me something completely I already know? I think someone was just trying to troll me or something. I live in Tokyo in Japan, so we already know the first of you Americans did. Might as well be getting a head start. I spend most of my time playing the video game, but I swore to Christ that during my gameplay, I felt that like someone was watching me play. I thought it must have been just me at home alone, but something occurred during my time on the PS4. I thought about it on the article, and as time went on, I fought the armored Toriko on the bridge. I thought I must have been spent too much time on the game and needed a break, but I felt that as if I was being summoned by something I couldn't see. But I can see me. I tried to repress it, but it keeps coming back. I don't know if anyone could feel this or not, but why Sakuro's death was anything to do with the game, but I tried to solve this mystery as soon as possible. And trust me, when I say this, I didn't have good results. I texted my friend Ka, who had been the son of a man who had experience with an Oni, or a demon or ogre, when he was around 11, and told him everything, and he replied to me this. I think I know what you're talking about. These kinds of things do happen to the deceased person when their spirit winds up inside a bizarre object, like a doll or a television set. I think the specter of a Sakura and possessed in your game might not be the brightest of the fury, but I'm just guessing. I mean, my dad had a run-in like an ogre. It's not what he saw the guy as a Halloween costume or something. I just sat there, thinking to myself and pondering about what he meant by processing an animated object. Is this possible? Could it be? I just had to know about this paranormal occurrence, so I asked him more about it, and he said, well, I think it's best that you figure it out at the library. I'll go ghost hunting with my dad tonight, and you go study on ghosts, and I will see you at work. After my job at the buffet as a chef, I went home and played the game again, and I thought that it was more and more about what Ka told me in those texts. I was very desperate and tried to multiple sleepless nights, and I thought that I was becoming paranoid and wanted to isolate myself from humanity. But thank you to Buddha that I wasn't, and yes, I was a Buddhist. Thank you so much for asking. I began to wonder if I should solve this riddle. I read every single article about ghosts, of how they work, and how they're able to haunt houses and others. But if anything, I turned up and down with nothing, and with that being the answer to things unanswered, how is this not that I'm not losing it? How is this that I can't figure it out if there's a ghost in my game or not? It didn't take long for me to have endless questions answered. I got a text from an anonymous person saying I had been through the Master of Valley and he accepted my sacrifice. What sacrifice? What is this crazy person talking about? Anyway, I asked him about or her of what it all meant, and he or she showed me a picture that seems to be a skeleton. What seems to be what it is, what happens after though. It happened to be very messed up. It's probably the messed up dinner I've ever seen. It was something that looked like it came out of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I choked back the vomit, and I could not see any bits of it anymore of this. I even saw basically certain pieces getting eaten with beans and blood, and it was just so messed up. It didn't look fake at all. I sent the photo to the police, and they said they'd find out who had done this, and who would be report. And it was about a boy who was 11 and had been reported missing for quite a while. I had stopped the game, and then I knew the truth. Kyle visited me in my home one night, and we looked up the YouTube videos of the gameplay where the player fights the Shadotoriko on the bridge. And when Kyle told me that something will haunt me for the rest of my life, he said that the Shadotoriko was talking, but it looked like if it was snarling to the players. It said, "There's no hope for you in heaven." I had chills going down my spine as to what had happened. I had been able to beat the game though. I cried when I had to say goodbye to my royal companion. I bet you Americans did the same thing. I saw gameplays of it on YouTube, and I saw that you guys bawl your eyes out at Trico fly away, never to be seen again. But I couldn't help it, the fear going through though. I went to bed and had a dream that was being eaten by a shadowy beast, similar to what it was. I guess you could say I was being pulled in. I kicked and screamed as loud as I could, but no one could hear me, not even my neighbors. I could see the creature's eyes and horns. Instead of the lavender or turquoise, it was blood red, and its eyes looked human. When I woke up with a yelp, I saw under the moonlight in my window, where inches a foot of my bed, a dark, masked man just standing there, staring at me, with his face that, even though it was human, resembled Trico's. He put his finger against his wide lips and said, "Shh," before vanishing into thin air. And that, my little pretties, was The Last Guardian Shadotoriko. I guess you could say The Last Guardian, lost, game or something. I don't know what to call this. A creepypasta written by TheDarkCat97. Well, TheDarkCat97, thank you so much for letting me read this story. This was, awesome. I had a really fun time, doing this part, so I could definitely say I had fun reading the story. So, yeah, thank you so much. My final thoughts on the story. Okay, I could definitely say that this story was really confusing, so to speak. Like, this story was really confusing, to be completely honest. Like, don't worry, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a good story, but it was quite confusing. Like, this story was very confusing. Like, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense at times. Like, I know this story was probably old or something, but for some reason, this story was just confusing. I'm saying this just to be at the nicest way as possible, is that this story was very confusing. I probably, maybe I'm just missing something. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing that probably could have said, but I really just don't really know. But I guess you could definitely say I just really am not sure, to be completely and utterly honest. Like, to be honest, I really honestly have no idea, as to how come I'm looking at myself and as to curious as to why. Like, I think maybe there's something I'm missing. I don't know. I clearly just don't know. But to be completely honest, this story honestly was just downright really confusing. Like, I'm just gonna say the story was quite confusing. Like, there were parts of the story I obviously just didn't really, I think it's just confusing because, the plot line, like, don't get me wrong, the grammar is pretty good along with the sentence structuring and all that. But with all honesty, the story just needs a little bit of explaining. Like, I feel that it didn't really explain a whole lot in this, so it's kind of why this story was just quite confusing. I just feel that it needed to be, properly explained more. Maybe that may be just me, but I honestly don't know. But I feel as if the story needs to be properly explained, I guess you could say. Like, if the story was properly, explained more, then maybe the story would be a lot more, well, easier to handle in that. But with all due honesty, I honestly just really, don't seem to know too much about this story. Like, this story was just confusing. I think that's just the main issue, is that this story is just confusing. Like, for one, the game, it starts off with, the guy gets, was bought a new Japanese game and he was playing it, but then gets a random text, and then all of a sudden it turns out to be, well, a young boy who ends up being, well, killed. I obviously had to skip reading certain parts of it because one of them being, uh, it's not ad friendly. I'm just gonna say some of the parts were just not ad friendly. So yeah, I had to make it as ad friendly as possible as I could. But I definitely have to say that the story itself was, and the story itself, I think it's just a really confusing concept. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the story actually was interesting, but it was confusing at the same time. So I obviously really didn't know what to exactly say, but I'm just gonna definitely say that the story just needed, I think it just needed maybe some, I don't know, it probably just needs to be fixed up as to why it's the case, because then that way it would, be would be pretty understandable. But not only that, it would just sit there and, kind of, I don't really know what it is, to be honest, but I definitely have to say that the story does need a little bit of, well, I guess you could just say it. I don't really know what to think of this story. I obviously just don't. Like, I'm not saying that the story is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying because the story actually was pretty, well, what was it? It's confusing. That's the only, issue I have to say with the story. It's just confusing. Like, everything's jumped over from 1 to 100, and I don't even know why this was the case, or how come, this happened. Like, there's basically, like, almost no explanation as to why it all happened. Well, I think it kind of, said that, but, oh, I don't know. I just don't know, people. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. I just don't know why it, went all over the place and just didn't, it just was confusing. It's the main thing. But I could definitely say the grammar was pretty good along with the sentence structure and all that. But the story itself is just quite confusing. That's mainly the only issue with the story. It's just confusing. But I guess I kind of, explain what I liked about it. Like, I'm not against anything about the concept, but it's just confusing as to, it goes from, playing a video game to a missing person to, well, having a nightmare of this guy, well, monster, trying to eat this person, I don't know what it is. This story is just confusing in my opinion. It was interesting, but it was confusing. That's the main issue I can definitely say. I guess that's probably all I have to say, but I'm gonna sit here and just say this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these, well, creepypastas. This is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story, I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 is because, well, the grammar was pretty good, along with the sentence structure and all that. The plotline, well, the interesting, concept was cool, but it was just confusing. The main issue being it just went all over the place and didn't really explain as to why it was jumping from 1 to 100. That's kind of one of the reasons why this story kind of brought me down a bit on the rating, because it was just confusing. Like, I know some creepypastas don't tend to make a whole lot of sense, but sometimes it's just the only reason. But I could definitely say the story was not bad at all. It was a decent story. It just needs to be, well, maybe it just needs to be fixed up a bit as to, fixed up as to what. So that way it's just so it wouldn't be confusing. That's just me, though. Anyways, What did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what have you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Leave me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so then you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.